Welcome today to our Encouraging Psychological Safety, Leading by Example virtual boardroom that is being facilitated by HR Recruit and Clare Spratt from Netley Consulting. My name's Jo Thompson and I'm a consultant for HR Recruit. I'm joined today by Clare, who will introduce herself shortly. Clare is going to discuss what psychological safety means to you, how organisations are creating space for teams, and practical things we can do to encourage and nurture it. If you've got any burning questions or comments during the session, then please put them into the chat box facility and we will cover them as we go along. I'm now going to hand you over to Clare, who will introduce herself and start the event. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Jo. Good afternoon, everyone. I can only see two faces at the moment. We'd love to see you join. Just get involved, start up your cameras. Doesn't matter if you're eating your lunch, that's fine. But just to introduce myself, my name is... Hello, great. Thanks so much for starting up your camera. Love that, Gemma. I'm Clare Spratt. I'm an insights discovery practitioner. I'm also a self-awareness coach. I'm a general emotional intelligence coach. I'm a leadership coach. I work with high-performing teams. I was just saying to Joe, I'm just back from the US working with a CEO and their team there. And also, most recently, I've developed some content around authentic communication. And in that is psychological safety. So a lot of what you're going to see today is going to be coming from that. So thanks so much for spending your lunch break with me. And I'm just going to see if my computer will let me share my slides, which is always an excellent start. So this is about my fourth or fifth HR Boardroom lunchtime session. And it's always really nice to hear all of your comments. So please, the whole point of this is to have a subject where we can all share our own experiences and other members can also weigh in and let you know what they're doing. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you to, whilst we're gathering, just start to think about what psychological safety means for you. If you work on your own, maybe what it means in your wider experience with clients or with stakeholders. If you're working in an organization, what that means for you and the team that you work in. The second one should be an easy one. So when or where in the world are you at your happiest? So when or where in the world are you at your happiest? So that might be your happy place. It might be a time or it might be a place. And then the last one to think about as we go through the session is how is psychological safety encouraged or nurtured in the place where you work? So those are the three main themes that we're going to be looking at. So I am a facilitator, so I'm going to be following some slides for this discussion, but please bring any of your questions in. As Jo said, this is an HR Recruit Boardroom session delivered by me, Clare Spratt. I'm the director of Netley Consulting. We're together until around about 1:10 past 1. Give you all a chance to eat your lunch. Please feel free to eat whilst you're here. So as I've said, sharing your experiences really does enrich this discussion. So please come in at any time. There's a couple of moments where we've set aside for you to discuss, share, express your feelings. And we've also got a poll everywhere word cloud we'd like to build at the beginning. So have your telephone ready with the camera open. So we love your contributions. We're together for a short amount of time. Keep your contributions coming. Tell us what's happening with you, your thoughts on it, your experiences, your tips for anybody else, but also please make sure that you just keep them a little briefer than you would do if we're in a longer meeting to make sure we're sharing the airtime. So get involved as much or as little as you like to, whatever that shows up, whatever way that shows up for you. I am a self-awareness trainer, so if you're more introverted and you prefer to listen and save your questions to the end, that's okay. If you're extroverted and you have thoughts that you'd like to share in the moment, please, it's all welcome. The only thing we'd ask is help us to create a trusted learning space here by just keeping anything that we share confidentially for this group here. There is a recording, so be aware of that. And the last one there is compulsory. Enjoy the session. So have a little think. Maybe you've got a few ideas here for when or where in the world you are at your happiest. And I'm going to ask you to use words to share that. So here in front of you is a QR code. If you take your camera and you just scan that, it will take you to a page. You don't have to put your name in, just skip it. And as soon as the next slide comes up, get ready to put in words that describe your happy place. So we'll have a few more minutes there. So let's see what comes in. So you should be able to type in some words. Where's your happy place? Home, yeah. Love that one. Keep them coming. My happy place is the sea as well, by the way. I did this exercise with my group of leaders 2 weeks ago, and I know that the place where I really come alive and feel like myself and feel I can be really authentic is when I'm sailing. It's my passion. So family, beach, yoga class, yeah, keep them coming. Mountains, quite a few of home coming there. Disney, brilliant. I love these. With friends, cycling. No one to put work in, imagine that. Here they are, your happy place, bit more. And we're hoping that this is the place where, as I say, you just feel like yourself. Yeah, with your families, a few more. Brilliant. These are wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing those. So with that in mind, when you start thinking about psychological safety, we're all HR practitioners. So the key thing to remember is the quick elevator pitch about psychological safety is if you ever remember that you worked with a manager and you were walking along a corridor and you saw your leader or your manager coming towards you and you thought, oh no, and you get really activated and quite nervous and you're thinking, what have I done wrong this time? What are they going to say to me? That's not psychologically safe. Think about the best leader that you've ever had. Imagine them walking along the same corridor towards you. The way that you feel, your state of mind, the way your body's activated is completely different. And a psychologically safe relationship is when we can go, oh, great, here's my leader. I can't wait to tell them all about this new idea I've had or this thing I've just done. So that's, for me, a little bit about the elevator pitch of psychological safety. It's a big theme at the moment. But one of the reasons that we look at this so closely, apart from making teams and places to work much nicer places and more retention and what have you, they are also a consistent part of high-performing teams. So there's three, according to the experts, and we know this has been researched for over 30 years, according to the experts, there's three elements. The first one we call common understanding or common goal, you might know that is. So the purpose we can all unite under in a team. The second one that we're interested in today is psychological safety. And the third one is pro-social purpose. So knowing that we're having a good impact out there on the world. So pro-social purpose. And think about a team that you're in. Maybe it's a work team, maybe it's a sports team, maybe it's a secret team with your dog that is more high performing. And the things that exist in there probably also includes just being able to be yourself. So that's safety. There's a few more building blocks, and these are important too. And again, there's a lot of models about this. So there needs to be, in order for there to be psychological safety, which by the way, isn't something you can teach. You can only lead it by example, their behaviors. And it involves somebody taking a bit of a risk at some point. But there should be trust. There needs to be some authenticity. And there also needs to be a moment of vulnerability. So we're not talking about sharing all of our personal details in order to create psychological safety. That's not appropriate. But just taking maybe a risk for asking the question that challenges other people or that you've always wanted to ask. And that authenticity are in a place where you can really be yourself and you're allowing other people to do that. So traditional psychological safety theory talks about those foundations. So we've got a common goal, we've got psychological safety, and we've got pro-social purpose in that high-performing team. The foundations are trust, authenticity, and vulnerability. And because we can't teach psychological safety, we can only practice it. It's developing the skills to lead by example. And it's usually the person who, has to take the risk in the room is the leader, and the leader is the most senior person. Why is it important? A few reasons up here. So teams and leaders build genuine long-term trust through vulnerability and authenticity, and that creates psychological safety. Feeling safe creates conditions where people can really do well. So those teams where people are already included, it's already diverse, it's already a safe place, there's already trust. That's where the ideas flow. It has a positive impact on how you feel about work or how you think about work and everyone else around you. As HR professionals, it attracts and retains the best talent. So think about the best companies that you've been into. If I think about an example of mine, I used to work for Insights, worked for Insights for 8 years, and they very much practice what they preach. So bring your whole self to work. Be exactly who you want to be. Make sure that you're unlocking your talent. Don't feel held back. Come and talk to us if you feel you're being held back. And people just don't leave Insights. and feeling genuinely happy to be there. And the best example I had was, very surprisingly, I don't know if we have anyone on from Nando's, but Nando's, what a great company. I did some work with them a few years ago, and they're very, very focused on the pro-social purpose, and they create teams of casual workers. For example, they make sure that all of their casual workers, students who work for them during busy periods, are welcomed back. And they often go on to become staff before they start their careers. So that's why it's important. So what do we mean by psychological safety? So this is going to be your second question I asked you to think about. And in a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to use chat and maybe pick on some people to bring their voice into the room as well. But what do we mean by it? So I've done quite a lot of research on this in the last year and a half. A McKinsey & Company came up with, for me, one of the best and succinct definitions. So they say, as you can see on the screen, psychological safety is the absence of interpersonal fear. So that feeling where we can ask the questions that we want to ask, that we're not afraid to, and we're not in a state of wondering what we've done wrong, that we feel really safe and really confident. Feeling psychologically safe allows people to perform their best at home, school, and work. So it's that culture where we're not feeling afraid, we're not afraid of failure, that there's some healthy conflict coming into it. We're raising the important questions and we're improving the outcome. That's McKinsey. So a few more things about it, and I've touched on these. The first one is that psychological safety isn't about harmony. It's not toxic positivity. It's not about everyone getting along. It's about feeling safe and confident to disagree. So safe to challenge how we do things. And that's where innovation comes from. So if we just keep doing the same things and we stay in a comfort zone, we're not really expanding our potential, our team's potential, our organization's potential, and the clients that we work with. It's about being able to speak up without fear of rejection. So if I ask this question, will people think X, Y, and Z of me? Or will there be any bad consequences? And the one that really rings true for an awful lot of people, and I remember this at the beginning of my career, is, will my job be okay if I challenge something? Is it safe to ask questions for understanding about the way we do things of other people? Is it comfortable to be yourself? So that links very closely to diversity and inclusion. And is there trust and authenticity already there? So I'd really love to hear what psychological safety means for you. What does it mean for you? So I'm going to stop sharing my slides. I'm going to watch the chats. I'm just going to ask a few people as well. So what does psychological safety mean for you? Anything flowing in there on the chat? What does psychological safety mean for you? Joe, I'm going to call you in. Why not? Joe Thompson. Hello, partner. What does it mean for you?
Being confident in myself and the people that I'm working with and my surroundings, really, just being me.
Yeah, love that. Brilliant. Thank you. Got some great ones coming in. Anna, thank you. Says no judgment. Do you want to say a few more words about that, Anna? Bring that to life for us.
Yeah, I just think feeling comfortable that you can, have an opinion, challenge things, and that, yeah, no one's going to judge you, even if it is an out there idea or an out there thought, just as it says, really.
Yeah, love that. Thank you. Thanks so much, Anna. Got a few more coming in here. These are great. Coming from positive construction place rather than from fear, feeling that you matter, your voice is heard. Yeah, feeling heard. That's so important. What else do we have here? You can see them coming in. Being able to be myself and feeling safe to share my views with no judgment. So that no judgment is a really strong feeling that comes through. And when we talk about these, creating an environment where people can share, being safe to express my opinions, feel confident to do so. Does anyone else want to, so not being afraid to make mistakes? Yeah. Andrea's slide. Do you mind if I invite you in? Comfortable to express, that voice will be heard. Tell me a bit more about that for me, if it's okay, Andrea. Maybe Andrea would rather not. That's fine. How about Inga? Feeling able to ask questions. Inga, do you want to add your voice to that? Inga Gregory.
Yeah, it just means that I feel confident that I can ask questions that might prompt some discussion, but also happy that those might result in a no. And that's fine, because not every question can be responded with a yes, that's a great idea. But knowing I have the team around me that those can be considered.
Brilliant. I love that. So well said. Thank you. And also being prepared for that no, if you're taking a risk, is it going to improve the outcome? If I speak up, if I have a vulnerable moment, is what I'm going to say respectful? Is it going to improve the outcome if I say it? And is it safe for me to do so? So yeah, being heard, really important. Andrew, I can see in the chat you said you've got no sound. Just check your speaker settings. Zoom often changes when you've been using Teams. Thank you very much for those inputs. It's fantastic to see the range of views that we've got there. And of course, we're recording, so you'll be able to look at those afterwards. It's going to share my slides again. So I've never asked that question and got the same answer, but there are a few themes in there. The asking questions with no judgment, that's a big one. Being safe to be yourself, that's a big one. What Inga said there, so asking questions and being prepared for people not to agree with you, but asking them anyway, about in where you work and how you're nurturing that. So let's have a look at that. I did talk about authenticity and vulnerability being foundations of this. Trust exists in many models. Lencioni's trust-based leadership, for example. There's a whole day that you could spend talking about what trust means to different people, what their perception of it is, different personality types and how that shows up. So one personality type will say, I build trust when I know that people have the qualifications or they've qualified into doing what they're about to do. Another personality type will say, I'll trust somebody if they give me the result on time. Someone else will say, if you involve me and tell me what's happening, I'll trust you. And somebody else will say, if this, I'll just trust you. And if it matches my beliefs or my values is a better word, then I know that I can trust you. And then the flip side of that is when is it lost? So there's a lot that you can do on trust. The second part, authenticity. This is often a misunderstood element of really good leadership, really good high-performing teams, and in particular creating psychological safety. So authenticity isn't about being inappropriate. It's not about oversharing. It's about a very good use of sharing a moment. So it's a flash. So being authentic is being true to yourself, but including vulnerability is then showing a flash of something which is a slight risk to you, but not too much, to build that trust with other people. And if you think about some of the most inspiring speakers that you've seen, I know I saw Raina Fines recently in November. Gosh, he's an old man now, but what an amazing explorer. But all of the moments that he talks about in his life-changing career, setting world records, walking from pole to pole or traveling with, only via land. The moments that he talks about is when he was most afraid. So authenticity is staying true to yourself, true to your values and your beliefs and your emotions. And it's also taking accountability for your actions. So saying, I got that wrong, and maybe learning from it a bit as well. Also celebrating, having the courage and confidence to say we did really well there as a team or as an individual. And it's definitely not disregarding your values to fit in, or a culture where you're hiding mistakes or trying to project emotional composure. There's a lot of talk at the moment. It's very much in discussion, as it should be, about how we can try and counter the culture of toxic masculinity, particularly coming through our school leavers at the moment. So not projecting emotional strength, having the confidence or the authenticity to say, you know what, I was really scared. And Raynald Fine's amazing example of that was stood at, I think it was the North Pole, waiting to get a bearing with his exploration partner. I think it was Mike Stroud at the time. And they were looking to reconnect with their rescue boat. And they had been stuck on the same piece of ice for 14 days. 14 days, and they couldn't get a bearing on their compass because half of the day the ice flows in one direction and makes you think it's south is that direction, and the other half it reverses and goes the other way. And he said that they had one chance. They had kayaks that they hadn't used and they couldn't get into because they knew they wouldn't be able to have the strength to get out of, because they were at a stage where they didn't have any more physical strength left. And they just took a chance with direction from shore. And they said, just go in that direction. We think you're 2 hours paddle away. And they took a chance and it happened to be the right one. But he talks about his fear and how he was reflecting on his life then authentically. He didn't say what a great job we did. He just said it was so frightening. So authenticity. The second part of that is vulnerability. We love Brené Brown. I'm sure you've heard of her, but she talks an awful lot about vulnerability as a way to psychological safety or leading by example. And vulnerability, she says, it's really scary. It's a frightening thing to do, to have a moment to say, I'm the only one in the room who doesn't think this is a good idea, or I have a fear. And good vulnerability, positive vulnerability, is as a leader or an HR professional being able to say, I have a fear. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do this. And therefore, I need your support with these things. Please help me. So that's what a really good leader will say. And it's what Raynald Fine said when he was stuck on a piece of ice. They called him the SAS because they were sponsoring the expedition and said, we're out of options. We're really afraid we're not going to connect with our rescue boat. And he said, just tell us what to do and we'll do it. So vulnerability, really important. We don't have time to cover the skills around vulnerability today, but let's connect it back to psychological safety. That last one that came up in the chat a bit is the need for healthy conflict, which we are going to dig into a bit before I ask for your views on what you're doing in your workplace to nurture or exhibit psychological safety. So healthy conflicts implies candid debate. So that safety to ask questions, to challenge things, to not be afraid of people disagreeing with you, and still respectfully have your opinion put and heard, and trusting to speak up without fear or retribution. So from the work that I do with personality typing and discovery, and also the emotional intelligence, it's worth knowing that as well as different types of trust, there's also different styles of conflict. And if you reflect on the style of conflict that you have, you can begin to build a picture of what good conflict looks like for you and what bad conflict behavior looks like for you. So this is a very useful, tangible thing you might be able to take away from today, is to read through these and think about someone that you work with or someone that you need or should have or do have healthy conflict with, and think about what their conflict style might be. Maybe you're someone who in a conflict likes to focus on the facts and come out with the data and ask the really pertinent questions in order to move that conflict through. Maybe you're someone who invites it in. And so in insights language is more of a fiery red nature, as will proactively use conflict to create momentum in a very positive way, and isn't afraid of challenging the status quo. Maybe you have more of a sunshine yellow preference, which is about preserving at all costs in bad conflict, but thinking about in good conflict, reserving relationships, because the sunshine yellow personality type is very about networks and bringing people together and being included. It likes to be told what's going on, and it can often resolve conflict through optimism and that forward thinking. And earth green, so more of that personality type that will prefer to avoid conflict and sit in harmony. Now that does turn into stasis. So we need conflict, positive conflict to move forward. But maybe they'll focus more on the fairness or the loyalty or what it means to the people. And then they're very good at bringing harmony in after conflict has happened as well. So just as a self-reflection, think about what your style might be. So what does healthy conflict look like? We said a few of them in the chat there. So hearing all views, being heard, respectfully making your case, coming to a decision but not a consensus. So not fearing that if you express your opinion that somebody might disagree, that's fine. That's their true self. They're staying true to their values. And that's how we get through to a final decision. And voicing views, it's empowering to others. So unhealthy conflict, I think we all know, I have experienced that as well. particularly when we're dealing with HR cases. So being defensive or using disrespectful language, maybe speaking over people, if they're not as extroverted as the speaker. So not allowing equal airtime for everyone to be heard, very important. Unhealthy conflict can also be reactional. There's an interesting tool you can take away here. So reactional, if you're in a situation where you're experiencing a conflict and you're feeling very activated, did you know that emotions only sit in your body for 90 seconds? So if you can pause and absorb what's happening and breathe and say, I'll just come back to you on that and not react for 90 seconds, you should have the opportunity and create the space to be able to respond in that healthy conflict way. When we're activated and we're triggered and we're responding off the cuff below 90 seconds, we're usually responding to an emotion, not a thought or a feeling or a logical outcome. So it's a little nugget for you to take away there. Unhealthy conflict is avoiding conflict. That's also not good. And feeling disengaged. So some people's conflict is what we traditionally might call more passive aggressive, also not helpful. So psychological safety, it needs healthy conflict. There's a few things in here for you, but let's move on to have a think of, by the way, that's from authentic communication. Let's have a think about where psychological safety sits, and then we'll come on to you. We'll spend the rest of our time hearing from you. So this is taken from our our authentic communication course. In psychological safety, pulling those things together. So is there trust? Is there authenticity? Am I showing some appropriate flashes of vulnerability? Am I leading by example? Now, what's my state? So how am I showing up? This is called the scales of discomfort. And you might want to take a pen and just write down in a moment where you think you live your life. So the safe zone, those who don't welcome in conflicts, don't challenge the status quo, are very happy with their lot, who just like to sit in the very easy comfort zone of doing the same thing and not rocking the boat. Maybe that's your comfort place. So maybe you live in the safe zone. So that's the 1, 2, 3, 3.5, maybe 4. Then there's the rest of us, or the other half, who live in that what we call overachieving, which it turns out isn't a positive thing. So overachievers will be constantly looking for the adrenaline, constantly looking for the conflict, constantly looking for scary things to do and challenges and seeking them out and living in a state, as I don't know if anyone else did, but I did until I was about 35, of always just surviving and looking for that adrenaline kick. And that's your 8, 9, 10 zone, maybe 7.5. And when we're in this state, when it's positive, we're just getting a great adrenaline kick and feeling the pace and being excited by that. But when this is a negative experience, we're feeling triggered and activated. And again, going back to that worst leader you've ever had walking towards you in a corridor and just thinking, oh my goodness, freezing up and not feeling you can speak up. That's not a place where we're going to progress either. So the ideal place for growth and where psychological safety, trust, authenticity, healthy conflict lives is in that 4.5, 5, 6, 6.5 zone. So if you're just pushing the boundaries a bit and you're just trying something different on you, or you're just feeling a bit like, oh, this is going to be a bit of a risk, but it's okay. That's the perfect place to be for growing yourself, exhibiting authenticity, safe behaviors, expressing, leading by example, psychological safety. That's the perfect place. And I'm going to share with you when we first designed this content, I thought, I need to practice this. I wonder if there's something in my life that's holding me back. And I don't mind sharing with you that 15 years ago, I had a horrendous horse riding accident. I nearly lost part of a limb, but I'm okay. I made a full recovery, but psychologically, I still have some fear. I'm an avid horse rider. And the one thing I've always promised myself I won't do is jump, because that's how my accident happened. And we were delivering this session or a similar session. And I thought, what's one thing that I'm not doing in my life where I'm just sitting in the safe zone? And I thought, jumping. I've got a wonderful horse who I see 3 days a week, who I trust. I know everyone can't relate to this, but imagine your version of this. and I'll trust him to do anything. And why don't I just pop him over a really small fence? So I did it. I thought, oh gosh, 16 years, I haven't touched a fence. And then someone came along and said, oh my goodness, did you jump? Can I take a picture? I said, no, I'm never doing it again. So I did another one so she could take a picture. And she said, I didn't quite get that one. Can you do another one? So I did a third one. I felt really proud of myself. And I thought, yeah, I've really pushed my comfort zone. I've learned something about myself. I've learned something about my hobby, and I've developed a skill which I thought I'd forgotten. This is great. I then took it too far and went and did a jump course, and scared myself silly. So I was definitely up in that activated 8, 9, 10. So just check in with yourself. If there's any areas of growth for you, your team, the leaders you work with, just think about staying in that ideal growth area. So that's another nugget you can take away with you. So in the last few minutes, I would like to open this up to discussion. There are 3 questions here. The first one is reflecting on where you work. Just take a minute to write these down. How is authenticity encouraged? So is the place where you work encouraging people to come along, be themselves, speak up, try new things, stay true to their values, not fit in, just come along and change the team by being there and bringing all their talent? Is there opportunity or for challenge and healthy conflict in your workplace, or is it a place where you'd never dream of speaking up? And are leaders able to lead by example? And the last question I'm going to ask is, what does psychological safety look like in the place where you work? So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to open up. So just think about those. How is authenticity encouraged where you work? Is there healthy challenge? And are your leaders able to learn by example? So let's have a look. Joe, you work in a business. As always, I'm going to ask you to
You're
kick us
picking
off.
on me again.
I'm going to pick on you again, just as the co-host to get things going. So the first question there is, do you think you're in a place where authenticity comes through? I know we're sort of a similar generation, and you get to a stage in life where you just think, I'm pretty comfortable with myself. But is there space for authenticity in the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my boss is really great. We all generally work from home. So we are given a lot of trust and empowerment to just basically get on and motivate and manage ourselves. And you can pretty much do that to however you want. As long as you achieve, then our boss is fine with that. So yeah, there's no barriers or anything like that. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Joe, did we want to switch the recording off for this part of the discussion so people
Yeah,
can
can
openly
do, yeah.
share? Yeah. So what's the one thing that you might think about exhibiting as a behaviour that might nurture psychological safety when you go back to your desk after your lunch hour? And again, feel free to share in the chat. So one of them might be, for example, the next time you disagree with something here in the room, is finding the courage to speak up respectfully. Or maybe it's creating space for others to be heard. So just one thing you might do differently. We'd love to hear them. Come off mute if you'd like to, put them in the chat. It's one thing you're going to do differently. Maybe it's using that scale of discomfort I showed you, pausing for 90 seconds. Everyone's just reflecting very well on that. Brilliant. So any final thoughts about what's happening in psychological safety? Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Aya. Love to see that in the chat. Yeah, whole body listening. That's brilliant. Whole body listening. Allowing others to be their authentic selves. So any final thoughts on psychological safety, nurturing it? I'd love to have hours with you. I know it's only a lunch break, but it's nice to sort of just trigger some thoughts with you and maybe create some new neurons in your learning. Any final thoughts about what's happening where you work, or something you could share like Kirsty has for us? Brilliant. Well, thank you all so much for spending your lunch break with us. We always appreciate it. Some sessions people just sit and think, which is great. We love that. And some sessions we're full of discussion. So it's really nice to hear some of your voices in the room today. I hope that we've helped you think about a few things. And thank you so much. Any questions, any comments, anything that anyone would like to share with us before you go?
I'll just do a close, Claire,
Brilliant.
and if anything comes in, we
Thanks,
can
Jo.
just, tag them on. Okay, so thanks very much to everybody for attending this session today, and thanks very much for Claire for facilitating it. As you can see, lots of food for thought there. I'll send out some correspondence this afternoon to the people that have signed up for the event, and I'll put a post on LinkedIn. So if you'd like a copy of the slides or the recording, then please put a comment against the LinkedIn post. Our next event is on Thursday, the 6th of June at 12:30, and is called Understanding the Impact of the Menopause at Work. A link to sign up will be included in the email. If anyone is recruiting, we've also got accountancy recruit, FD recruit, and exec recruit in the group. Otherwise, I'd just like to say a massive thanks to Claire for putting the event together, and thanks to everyone for signing in. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.